So how do beekeepers know that it's time to split their hives? What are we doing in the spring / end of winter here in East Texas? Well, today we're going to talk about it. We've been keeping bees for over 9 years. We have 5 different apiaries and about 50 hives on average per year that we manage. We love to teach beekeeping classes, and we especially love to help people in the East Texas area figure out how to be the best beekeepers they can be. So it is early March here in East Texas, and it is a beautiful day today. Sunny skies, so the bees, well, it's been a little bit overcast this morning, but the bees have been working, and Robert has been out checking some of our bee yards. So I thought that we would talk a little bit today about what we're doing with our bees and what we're getting ready to do. And next week, hopefully, we're going to talk about kind of growing your apiary. But today, let's talk about what's going on in the hives in the spring. If we've had good weather like this, this is what we would expect. So he'll tell us what he saw, but what we would expect going into the hives on a day like today is lots of bees, brood in all different stages, and we would probably be hoping to see some drones. So let's find out what Robert saw. So what did you see, Robert?
I found a lot of hives were really in expansion mode, so they are really starting to increase the brood from the last time I was in the hives. I have been feeding like a free choice dry pollen here at our place, but all the other apiaries have tons of pollen in them. So the trees here in East Texas are really putting off pollen, and they're bringing it in, and that's encouraging them to increase their brood. I am feeding sugar water. We're starting to get some flowers now, but there really hasn't been a lot of flowers, and we're slated to get another freeze this week, and the temperature is going to cool off the next 2 days. So I kind of not worry about it, but I just kind of keep an eye on that kind of stuff, because you can lose hives when the population suddenly increases, and then you get a cold spell where they have to really consume a lot of resources. If they don't have enough honey or sugar water or nectar, you can lose a hive when most people right now think that they've made it through the winter, but we've got a freeze forecasted for this week, and we typically get freezes up to the 15th of March here in East Texas.
Sometimes even as late as April. I think our first year beekeeping, we had an April freeze that year, and we ended up losing our hives very late in the spring that year because new beekeepers, and we're always learning. But like he said, a lot of people think, okay, we're good, but if your hives went into the winter with a lot of resources, and we had an average winter, I would say, but we've got a good spring and the hives are just exploding, they're going through those resources. And so having 2 or 3 or 4 days where they have to be inside locked up and all those bees eating, the colony can starve. So that's one important thing to be noting right now. Keep feeding. You're not gonna impact the nectar flow here in early March. So we're still feeding. What about drones? Let's talk about why we're looking for drones.
Okay, so we're looking for drones because the ultimate goal is splitting, but a key component of splitting is raising queens. And you really can't raise a mated queen unless you have male bees, which are the drones. So typically, in years past, we've seen lots of drones in February, the end of February. They'll start coming out. So far today, I've been through probably 30 hives, and I probably saw drones in 2, maybe 3 of those hives. So really not the populations that I'd want if I was splitting today or raising queens to get, to put into hives. So if you've had your bees here locally in East Texas all winter, then there's probably not a lot of drones. The commercial guys who are out in California, those hives probably do have a lot of drones, and those are being brought in next couple of weeks from California for them to do all of their splitting. But right now, just I would say the native bees really haven't put a lot of effort. They've put a lot of effort into raising brood, but they still haven't focused on any drone production yet. Not to the numbers that I like to see when I start doing queens.
So that leads up to what we'll talk about in the next 2 weeks is splitting. And so that's one way for a beekeeper to grow their bee yard without investing a whole lot of money. So we take one hive and we take the bees and the resources that are in that hive, and we basically split it between two or three hives. So instead, we'll walk up to one hive, but when we walk away, it could be 3 or it could be 2, depending on how strong the colony is. But in order to do that, you've got a couple different options with queens, and we'll talk about that in the details of splitting. But if you do what we call a walkaway split, which is you just turn maybe one hive into 2 or one hive into 3, and the queen is in one of those boxes, the other 2 are going to have to raise their own queen with eggs that the queen has laid. And so they can do that, and they do that very well. But ultimately, she has to leave the hive and get fertilized. So they get fertilized shortly after they hatch, and that's it for the rest of their lives. So if we were to force some splits right now, it would lend itself to a queen being not properly fertilized. And we actually have a hive that we think that's what happened, because it's a very drone heavy hive.
Yeah, that queen, I raised that queen in the fall when there's, the drone numbers are already decreasing, so I don't think she was bred properly. And what I said earlier before about not seeing drones, I was meaning specifically adult drones. There's a lot of drone brood, but when you're talking about 24 days for a drone to emerge, you got to look at where the brood is, and kind of gives you an idea of when you're going to start seeing an increase in the drone population. And I really think 10 days probably at least before you really start seeing a kind of an exponential increase in the drones, when all those drones are going to start emerging.
Which is late for us. We usually, like you said, we usually see them in late February. Sometimes we even see them earlier than that. So anyway, so that's what's going on in the hives today. Obviously, we are positioning ourselves to do splits. The colonies look really good and strong otherwise. So again, we're still feeding. We would encourage you, unless you can check your hive and see lots of resources. If you can see lots of resources, then you might not need to feed. But knowing how fast the colony is growing, we don't want them to have any reason to be unhappy. We want them to continue growing and expanding, so that when the nectar flow does hit in April-ish, then we're going to get the most amount of honey from the honey collection. So.
And you don't want your hive to stall, right? So kind of the spring weather can be kind of up and down. It can be hot and then cold. And whenever you go into those freezing times, it'll stall a hive. They'll stop laying. They'll stop trying to increase their size. They'll just go into conservation mode. So if you're constantly, what I'm doing is basically trying to encourage them to increase their numbers as best they can for when I do split. So, feeding them sugar water, offering them pollen as a free choice, a dry pollen substitute that's just out in the field that they can go get if they feel that they need it from there, or they can get it from the trees.
Yeah, so if you didn't see our dry pollen feeding video, that was, I think, 2 weeks ago, and I showed you our pollen feeder, and I took a bunch of, some video of just the bees coming in. So it's just kind of like a tunnel set up with some, with like an end cap, and he fills it with pollen, and they will clean it out in 2 days. So it's pretty interesting. It's pretty interesting to see how busy it is over in that corner of our property. It's not my favorite place to walk by right now. So anyway, so that's all we have for today, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so we hope you're enjoying this wonderful weather right before it gets cold again. And we hope that you are kind of learning about how to be a better beekeeper and just more of the ins and outs of what we're doing. So happy beekeeping, and thanks for watching. Please like our video, please subscribe to our channel, and we'll continue to do more videos. And also in the comments, let us know if there's anything that you want us to talk about specifically. We would love to do that. Have a great day.